Beth, I tell you what, folks, it's with great pleasure and an honor to introduce my next speaker. Greg Fettig is a small business owner and lifelong Hoosier. He, like many others, became a political activist in the spring of 2009. That's about the same time my wife and I got back into politics. His efforts in Tea Party have taken him to Washington, D.C. dozens of times, where he's made connection with the Club for Growth, Freedom Works, Family Research Council, Heritage Foundation, and Americans for Prosperity. Greg has met with senators and congressmen alike, and with them, and is regularly invited to meet with them and share his candid perspective on the state of the nation. He was named a liaison to the Indiana 9th U.S. District Congressional District, representing the Tea Party views. Greg has met with former RNC Chairman Michael Steele, as well as the Indiana State Republican Party. In 2010, he asked for and received 3 seats on the Indiana GOP Platform Committee, a speaking role at the convention, and direct input in filling over 2,000 open precinct positions. He has established an extensive network with Tea Party groups around the country, in Australia, Canada, Italy, Argentina, and the Netherlands. Greg is regularly asked to speak to Tea Party groups and conservative organizations, service clubs. He spoke from the steps of the U.S. Capitol in the 9/12/10 march in Washington, has been interviewed by Fox News, CNN, the BBC, Washington Post, New York Times, and many others. He's co-founded the Hoosier Patriots and currently serves as president of American Refocus as co-chair of Hoosiers for Conservative Senate. Let's have a big hand of applause for Greg Fettig.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here tonight. I had the pleasure of speaking to you guys back in the spring, and I'm impressed that we'd have this many people on a Saturday night. You just don't see that in every Tea Party. Usually it's during the week, but the fact that you're committed to be here tonight means you share the same concerns that I do about our country. We're in trouble. Now, when I was asked to speak, they said you can really talk about anything you want, and frankly, as time goes on, I have more and more material to speak about, so that won't be an issue. Real quick, on the international level, I wanted to let you know that indeed our movement is global. I had the great pleasure to travel with Freedom Works in August to Israel as part of the Glenn Beck Restore Courage tour, and probably the most rewarding part of that trip is we met in Tel Aviv one afternoon with about 45 Israelis and sowed the seeds for the Kosher Tea Party. So Tea Party is in Israel now. And most of you know that most of my time right now is spent with working on Hoosiers for Conservative Senate. Any Richard Murdoch fans out here? Good. Well, and some of you may know this, others don't, but what we recently did in September in Greenfield, we had 55 Tea Parties from around the state participate in our convention and straw poll, and that 55 groups represented about 75% of the groups in the state. There were several that did not attend simply because they felt they could not do an endorsement. What we did is, as I said, we took a straw poll, and on a vote of 96-1, and those were just the delegates that had voting rights that day, representing their groups. 96-1, they voted in favor to support Richard Murdoch. And with that, Richard Murdoch received the endorsement of Hoosiers for Conservative Senate. And then part of my efforts on that was to cultivate, as Jim said earlier, national organizations to help us in this battle. 1 week after we endorsed Richard Murdoch, Tea Party Express came into Indianapolis and endorsed him as well. And that's a good resource for us. They'll be able to help fund his campaign. 3 weeks after that, actually about 3.5 weeks after that, Freedom Works had come in town, and we've been working with them, I personally, for about 2 years, but Hoosiers for Conservative Senate since the beginning of this year. They came in and put their endorsement on that. And that's really, in my opinion, going to be critical for our success with this race. One of the first things I've gotten already, and I have several, if you guys want them, bumper stickers already. Retire Luke. I brought them here for you guys. If you'd like them to see me afterwards, and you're welcome to them. There's only one on the state right now, and that's on my pickup truck, but I want to see a bunch of these. that's what they're going to do to help us. Freedom Works, the way they help is through resources. They won't donate money to the Murdoch campaign. They work with the Tea Party, the grassroots activists around the state. Right now, the last figures I checked, Richard Murdoch had roughly $400,000 in the bank for his campaign, and Senator Lugar has $4 million. And you think, how are we going to compete with that? Well, Freedom Works, the resources they're willing to provide with us as a parallel campaign to the Murdoch campaign would rival that in the volunteer hours that we get successful with this and get coordinators in every county. And one might argue, well, Richard Murdoch already has that, but we want to parallel that and do things that Freedom Works is allowing us to do with those resources, being hundreds of thousands of yard signs, hundreds of thousands of these, door hangers, palm cards that illustrate the differences between our candidate and Senator Lugar, walking list on which doors to knock on get out the vote, that the right doors that people have voted 4 out of the 4 last elections, or 3 out of the 4 elections, and so forth, as well as phone bank systems, which I overheard the elections table over there. Phone banking does work. I mean, there'll be coordinated and targeted calls on who to call, and then try to educate them on why Richard Lugar doesn't best represent our state anymore, not in a conservative manner anyway. So these resources, when we do that and allocate to a man-hour, a volunteer hour of labor right now is valued at $20.16. So if we put hundreds of thousands of hours in, and we have $500,000 to $750,000 in materials, we can narrow that gap to at the most 2-to-1 ratio. And then with the sentiment that I see around the state, that's enough for us to win. So we really need the Tea Party to be engaged in every county to get out the vote. It's not easy always to make a phone call, as you guys said over there, but you have to do it. You have to get out of your comfort zone. So that endorsement was monumental towards our success to elect Richard Murdoch. Some of the other things real quick, as I said, to get out the vote, we're looking, and in fact we don't have one right now, an Owen County coordinator. Any Tea Party activists that want to help on our campaign as the parallel Murdochs, would be happy to do it. Just see me at the end, but we really need one in every county if we can get them. We have a good plan, a strategy. We have tens of thousands of Tea Party activists around the state that are willing to help. So May 8th could be historic in this nation, and certainly for the Tea Party. If we beat Senator Lugar, the media and the national establishment won't take us or mock us. And, well, they still might do that, but they'll definitely fear us, because that's not been done on that scale. It's a national coordinated effort. Not only do we have Freedom Works, we have Tea Party activists in other states that don't have a battle, and they're looking to help. And that's the beauty of this movement, is we don't have any geopolitical boundaries. We can go anywhere we want. I've come down to your county today to help you out, to share my experience, hoping that maybe it gives you something that you hadn't thought of, a little bit of a useful resource. And so that's the beauty of this movement. Last Saturday, I was up in Michigan and Lansing. The Michigan Tea Party's there. Saw what we did in Indiana with Hoosiers for Conservative Senate, and they invited us up to share our experience, and we did. They had 85% of their groups there in attendance, and they signed a pledge of unity to work together towards defeating their senator. Now, a little different dynamics. They have a Democrat senator, Debbie Stabenow. They have 8 Republican candidates right now vying for the primary, but they've realized that if they don't rally behind one candidate, they won't beat her, because there'll be so many, they'll be beat up into the primaries. And then one guy, their primary for that general election is in August, and the election's in November. That doesn't give that person a lot of time to campaign or to raise funds and so forth. So they look to Indiana. We led the way. All of you guys led the way. And from what I understand here in this district, this 8th congressional district, and John Callahan, they are modeling a smaller version of Hoosiers for Conservative Senate to do the caucus and so forth. So it's an interesting story. It's all because we decided to put differences aside, not to be afraid of someone else. Like you guys are going to work with the Indianapolis Tea Party. That's great. That's how we have our strength. It's in unity, working together. If we go individually, we're not going to be able to do this. But when we link arms, we are able to do this. So another interesting aspect of this, and in fact the bloody 8th, that we have been talking to a reporter from the Reuters news agency. They're following Indiana, so what we're talking about in Michigan, and he took a keen interest in the 8th district, Christie Risk. we're hoping and we're planning, we're counting on her beating Larry Bouchon. He thought that was fascinating. And he even heard, over in England, it's the Bloody Eight. So he wanted to know about this race. There will be an in-depth article within the next couple of weeks about this, the statewide, but also the race here in the 8th District. So it's exciting times, and the reason they're looking at us because they know we're effective. 2 years ago when we first started, they mocked us. Now they mock us and try to attack us and drag us through the mud. So that means we're on to something, and they don't like it. The establishment simply doesn't like it. But one of the most exciting things, at least in the last few days, and Beth